Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie Riskin. I'm a member of the LSC board, and I'm very honored to be able to introduce Arkansas Supreme Court Associate Justice Robin Wynn. In 2004, Justice Wynn was elected to his first term for the judge of the District Court of Dallas County, and then re-elected in 2008, and halfway through his second term, he was elected as the judge of the Arkansas Court of Appeals in District 5, and then he was elected to the Supreme Court in 2014 and currently serves as the court's liaison to the Access to Justice Commission. Justice Wynn had a deep, long career in public service before joining the bench. He was the prosecuting attorney for the 13th Judicial District. He was the city attorney for Fordyce, Arkansas, and the county seat of Dallas County. And before that, he was a state representative in the 91st District of the House of Representatives, which includes Dallas, Cleveland, and Lincoln counties. In 2017, Justice Wynn wrote an editorial entitled Justice for All that was published in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, and he argued that justice is and always has been a fundamental American value, and reminded us that those who are unable to afford the right to an attorney should not be forgotten, and urged Congress, as we do, to support a robust system of legal aid. And justice is about more than just, he's put that into action. I was looking at the court's website, and they have something that caught my eye called Appeals on Wheels, and that's bringing the court around the state to other parts, not just in Little Rock, but so that people, particularly students in rural areas, can learn, can see the court in action, not just read about it or hear about it, but actually see it. And that's another really important way of making justice accessible. We'll be talking a lot about rural today, so I wanted to mention that important contribution. Justice Wynn received his BA from Harvard University and his law degree from University of Arkansas Law. So please join me in welcoming Justice Robin Wynn.
Thank you, Julie, for the introduction. I'd like to welcome Chairman Levy and members of the Legal Service Corporation Board and other distinguished members of that board and other guests. It is an honor to host you here in Arkansas for this important event. In preparing my remarks for the forum, I visited the LSC website to look at previous events. I was very interested when I found a forum 2 years ago when Chairman Levy introduced the guest speaker, John Grisham. He's one of my favorite authors, and I listened to his remarks and found that he and I had some things in common. Certainly not that I have his writing skills, but I do have a similar humble beginning in my law practice, and let me tell you about that. When I graduated from law school in 1978, I returned to Fordyce, Arkansas, a small town in South Arkansas with a population 5,000 people. My grandfather had started the law firm in 1905, and so when I returned in 1978, my father, my uncle, and my brother were in the law practice. It was called Win, Win, and Win. Catchy name for a law firm, although we were not always that successful. There was no room in the firm for me, literally no office space, so we agreed that I would open a satellite branch in Hampton, Arkansas. Now, it is 20 miles south of Fordyce. It has 1,200 people, and when I went down there, there were no lawyers in the town, there were no lawyers in the county, but there was an abstractor and a banker who practiced the unauthorized practice of law. And although I did not necessarily feel welcome when I arrived, I did find an available building since there were no office spaces. That building was an old washateria. The owner agreed to renovate it for me, so I hung my shingle up and started practicing law in Hampton. It was only one room, though. So if I had more than one client, that person had to wait outside. Unfortunately, though, I rarely had more than one client. I grossed $16,000 that year and was very proud of it. But what I got more of in compensation, more fruit and vegetables from people that lived in Hampton, Arkansas. It was a town with much poverty, but with good people and many legal problems. Nothing has changed much in Fordyce or in Hampton, Arkansas over the last 40 years, but the legal issues are the same. In 1978, when I started practicing law, there were 11 attorneys in Fordyce. Now there's one attorney in Fordyce and none in Hampton. The need still exists, and we have a responsibility to rural Arkansas to provide access to justice. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we close with the words liberty and justice for all. And I think it's important that everyone have not just legal representation, but adequate, or better yet, excellent representation. The idea of equal justice under the law is something that's in our country's DNA. The framers of the Constitution established justice in the preamble as a second reason for having a Constitution. Here in the United States and in Arkansas, we have largely failed to deliver on that promise. The U.S. consistently ranks last or next to last among the industrialized countries when it comes to affordability and accessibility to our civil justice system for ordinary citizens. In the most recent release of the World Justice Project in 2017, the U.S. ranked behind Sierra Leone and Afghanistan on this indicator. Lawyers now provide assistance to fewer than 20% of the civil legal problems experienced by poor people, and an estimated 1 in 6 Americans represent himself or herself in a newly filed case each year. There are other realities that further complicate things. We do not have enough attorneys. Here in Arkansas, we have 6,693 resident Arkansas licensed attorneys, with only about 3,200 in private practice who can take paying clients or pro bono clients. For a population of 3 million people in Arkansas, there's no way that even the private market can scale to the needs of the general public. I teach at our law school here in Bowen and have for the last 7 years, and one of the first things that I do with my students, and I ask them why they want to be an attorney. And I'm sure if I asked y'all why you wanted to be an attorney, I'd probably get some of the same answers that my students give me. First answer is they want to be their own boss. Second answer, they say they want to make money. Third answer, some of them want to be litigators. And then finally, a student speaks up and says, I want to help people. And I like that answer. And I tell them not to be discouraged when people criticize our profession and tell them that there are too many lawyers, and that's just not the case. But I do tell them that we need more good and excellent lawyers. Second, most people don't recognize that their problems are legal in nature and a lawyer can help solve them. Problems like evictions, debt collection, inability to get accommodations for special needs children are viewed as simply bad luck, financial hardship, or that's just bureaucracy. A fraction of the folks with these problems recognize them as such and go outside their immediate social circle to seek help, if at all. And then thirdly, the way that most people are now assessing information and conducting their business, as we all know, is online. YouTube, American Trade, and Legal Zoom. When it comes to the legal profession in particular, most consumers, whether individuals of modest means or large corporations, increasingly want more transparency in pricing, a clear understanding of what they're getting in return, and a greater level of involvement in pursuing whatever legal remedies are open to them. The legal profession has so far largely failed to adapt to this reality, leaving a large segment of society to find ways to work around us. The human toll cannot be overstated, and it's more important now than ever to take action to provide legal assistance to those who cannot afford traditional legal services. I have some experience with problems faced out there in our communities when people cannot afford to hire an attorney and come into court representing themselves. Without guidance and without assistance, these folks struggle. During my 30 years of practice in Fordyce, I saw pro se litigants struggle to know what to do with pleadings and in courtrooms. And I also saw trial judges struggle to know how to handle these situations. And the truth is that people with legal problems need good advice. In Arkansas, we have 2 LSC-funded legal aid programs that provide direct legal representation to individuals who cannot afford an attorney and who would otherwise go without. The Center for Arkansas Legal Services and Legal Aid of Arkansas together help as many as 10,000 people with a combined staff of about 50 attorneys. They make the promise of justice for all a reality for Arkansas families who would otherwise go without. And legal aid is the only infrastructure that we have in the state to screen eligible clients and match them with volunteer attorneys. I have the privilege of serving as a liaison from the Arkansas Supreme Court to Access to Justice Commission, which is a committee of the Arkansas Supreme Court. Access to Justice conducts research and undertakes policy initiatives designed to increase access to justice both through legal and through other initiatives. When I was elected to the Supreme Court in 2014, we have 7 justices, and I was number 7. We have 18 committees and commissions on the Supreme Court, and so you get to pick what you want in order. So I got last pick. Fortunately, though, I was able to pick Access to Justice because it was still available. My predecessor, Annabelle Ember Tuck, had come to see me when I'd gotten elected and suggested that this would be something that would probably fit in to what I would be interested in, and I certainly appreciate her. And I followed in her footsteps, which were large footsteps to follow. The Access to Justice Commission is in line, though, with my personal values and also with my experiences in my life. I've been honored to work with the commission while in the court over the last several years. One initiative that our court did and authorized in the rules was adopted in 2016, which permits attorneys to provide limited scope representation for attorneys. It's also referred to as unbundling legal services. Unbundling allows attorneys to provide representation on an a la carte basis to individuals who, in the absence of this option, are spending between $250 to $500 to purchase forms online that might be difficult for a non-lawyer to understand. Unbundling is intended only for simple legal matters where the client has the wherewithal to participate in the representation. At Arkansas Access to Justice, we provide resources and training for attorneys who are interested in knowing more about limited scope representation and other innovative models that address legal need during a time when the need is overwhelming and the legal profession itself is in a state of radical change. But this initiative wasn't an original idea of the commission, and it had come up earlier by various legal aid programs here in Arkansas and across the country. These programs have been pioneered in various places for the practice of unbundling. More than 2 decades ago, over-the-phone advice through helplines and brief services in instances where a client may need to be pointed in the right direction to resolve legal issues. They recognized the enormity of the problem and made innovative use of the resources to try to make a difference in as many lives as possible. Back when I first started practicing the law, there was a program called Judicare, and I understand that there's Judicare in various other states. I don't think it's in Arkansas now, but I was a Judicare lawyer. A client would come in and they would have been approved for Judicare, and I would agree to accept their representation of them, and I got paid $45 an hour. And I can say this, as a young lawyer, that wasn't bad. Unfortunately, Judicare no longer exists in Arkansas, but it was certainly a good program for our low-income families. Everyone deserves justice, regardless of who they are, where they live, or how much money they make. And here in Arkansas, in the spring and then in the fall, when we swear new attorneys in, one of the things that they have to recite is this part of their pledge. It says, "I will not reject from any consideration personal to myself the cause of the impoverished, the defenseless, or the oppressed. When the legal profession takes on impoverished clients, society wins. When the impoverished have to fend for themselves, society loses. It's our turn now to step up our efforts. We're so pleased to host the Legal Services Corporation board members here in Arkansas, and I'm extremely proud that our Access to Justice Commission and Foundation, as well as our two legal organizations, what they're doing. I want to recognize Amy Johnson, who's the Director of Access to Justice here in Arkansas. Where's Amy? Hey, Amy. And also Jordan Rogers, who is our program coordinator. Is Jordan here? Jordan. And I would also like to recognize two of our directors of our legal services, Gene Carter and also Lee Richardson. Thank you, both of y'all. And I will say this, that both maximize what funds y'all have available to provide services in Arkansas, so thank y'all to all four of you. I am proud to stand on the shoulders of others that have come forth, and this is our time. And those that have fought before us, and what Chairman Levy said about where we are. We have a long way to go, and I, as you, are disappointed when we don't have more funds and we don't have more attorneys to do the work that's needed for those that cannot afford attorneys. It is our time and our place to ensure that the rule of law is applied, that equal justice is administered, that an independent, fair, and impartial judiciary thrives, and that all citizens have a right to a jury trial. This is our moment to make these foundations work, so I ask you to carry on and fulfill your responsibilities to society. Go forth and send the message that we have the greatest judicial system in the world, one that can and should work for all citizens, and one that we will forever defend. I hope you enjoy your conference here in Arkansas, and once again, welcome to Arkansas.